This show is way gayer and way blacker than the original source material. And I loved it. And yes, this big ass book is the graphic novel. And this is just volume 1. There's others. Welcome to my Safe Gayven, everybody. Thank you guys so much for clicking on this video and joining me for another review here on the BlackGayComicGeek channel. If this is your first time checking me out, hey, how's it going? My name is Michael. I call myself the BlackGayComicGeek and always say that things that I love to talk about on my channel has blood, sex, gore, and magic. So I like to talk about superheroes, I like to talk about video games, I like to talk about action movies, horror movies, sci-fi, fantasy, and of course I like to talk about black representation and queer representation, or sometimes the lack thereof, in sci-fi fantasy properties. But guess what? We don't have to worry about that for this particular review. But if that's something that you are interested in, if you think representation matters and you think representation equals normalization, do me a favor if you are already. Hit that subscribe button. Become one of my Safe Gayveneers, which is the people that I call my subscribers. And guys, I think I'm like 3 subscribers away, or maybe 2 subscribers away from hitting another milestone on the channel, 6,000 subscribers. So do me a favor, if you aren't subscribed, hit the subscribe button. If you are subscribed and you came across this video, whether you're a regular or a newbie, hit the like button. It'll really help with the algorithm, getting this video out there, my channel out there, more eyes on the channel so I can grow this content, grow this Black Gay Comic Geek LLC, and become a full-time content creator. But yeah, we are here to talk about what is now the #1 show on Netflix right now, based off of the DC Comics universe created by the great legendary author Neil Gaiman, The Sandman. And the story is, when the Sandman, aka Dream, the cosmic being who controls all dreams, is captured and held prisoner for more than a century, he must journey across different worlds and timelines to fix the chaos his absence has caused. And so yeah, like I said, this story is based off the graphic novel written by Neil Gaiman. It's based in the DC universe. And this particular first season, even though, like I said, this is a huge tome, I think I don't even know how many issues of Sandman there are. I have the first 3 of these. I didn't even read all of this. I read most of this, but I think the first season is just the first 16 issues. The first season is just the first 16 issues. So like, if they decide to do more season, there's a lot they could go through. But yeah, so considering how big and vast and epic the Sandman comics were, I was a little concerned when the show was announced, because I was like, more than likely they're probably not going to do 10 episodes or more. And I'm like, the Sandman universe, there's a lot of story there. I'm like, how are they going to contain even just the 1 season in like 8 to 9 episodes? But suffice to say, after watching this whole first season, I absolutely loved this first season, and I really hope they end up doing a season 2. And if you guys out there are fans of audiobooks instead of actually reading the graphic novel, do yourself, even if you did read the graphic novel, do yourself a favor and get the audiobook. I think it's only on Audible. James McAvoy is the voice of Morpheus, Dream, the Sandman. Like, the production level and production quality on that audiobook is incredible. It sounds like you're watching a movie. And so with that said, speaking of Incredibles, Tom Sturridge, who plays, I think that's his name, who plays Morpheus, the Sandman, I thought he was great. I thought he really captured that ethereal, otherworldly character, and like the fact that he has all this power. He's one of the most powerful people in the room. Like, he definitely captured that with regards to his acting. And I did see that Neil Gaiman, while he was like, because Neil Gaiman was heavily involved in the making of this show, he had to like coach Tom Sturridge a little bit when it came to like his acting, because he kept wanting to put it on a Batman voice. Where are you going? When he was acting, and he kept telling him that don't do that. Don't put on the Batman voice. But either way, like, his I loved him as Morpheus. And even the overall production design of this show, like, Netflix definitely put some money into this show. Like, the way the dreaming looks and the way Morpheus and other creatures' powers and the CGI in this show, like, it looks incredible and it looks great. And like I said, it looks like Netflix really put some money into this show, unlike some other Netflix properties that you're just like, why did they even bother with this? And the thing that I really loved about this Netflix rendition, and that's on the strength of having Neil Gaiman be the executive producer and a writer on the show, and also a huge writer and showrunner on this series is Alan Heinberg. And I've always been a fan of Alan Heinberg, mostly because he was the original writer and creator of the Young Avengers comics. So like two of my favorite characters, Wiccan and Hulkling, Alan Heinberg created them. And I'm like, I really hope Marvel can get him back to do another run of the Young Avengers. But with that, and I also feel like that's probably why it was also so gay with Alan Heinberg himself being an out gay man. But like, the thing about this series is I feel like this is one of the most comic accurate adaptations that I've ever seen so far. Like, there are literally moments where you could like scenes that are in this series that you could like go beat for beat in the graphic novels. Lines taken, not just some lines or the most iconic lines, literally entire scenes that are taken from the graphic novel that they adapt to live action. And that's the thing that I really loved about the series. Now, with that said, obviously there are some changes from the graphic novel to the comic. Like, it couldn't be a one-for-one adaptation, because things that work in a comic don't necessarily work in a movie. But that's not the case for the graphic novel. But yeah, but like overall, there are some changes from the graphic novel to the comic, but for the most part, it's pretty faithful to the original comic series. And I do think that's a strength on the show, because the comic series is damn, there's a reason why it's the legendary Sandman comic graphic novel. And obviously, like it says in the title, this is going to be a non-spoiler review, but like, the thing I love, and I do kind of wish it was a little bit more bloody, but this show definitely had the blood, sex, gore, and magic. There wasn't also enough sex for me, but like, I just really love the world of the Sandman that this show really introduced, especially compared to the comic, because like I mentioned in my intro, like this show was way blacker and more diverse than the original 1980s comic book. Like, there were black people all through, not just black people, but all types of Asian characters. It wasn't just mostly all white characters. And so because of that, there's some aspects of the show that can be a little triggering in the sense of like who the victims end up being. But on the flip side of that, some of the most powerful characters on the show are black as well. So that's one thing that I really appreciated, because it's something that I talk about all the time. Like I said, I talk about black representation and queer representation. And a lot of times when it comes to sci-fi fantasy movies and genres, books, video games, etc., I'm like, I'm tired of white people being always being the most powerful people in the room. Like, even when you think about the Omega level mutants in X-Men, almost virtually all of them are white. Storm is the only non-white Omega level mutant. And it's just like, especially considering like black people were the original people, yada yada, like, you mean to tell me at every single point, a white person is always going to be the most powerful person in the room? So I like that they actually, like, white people aren't always all the most powerful people in the room. Like, yeah, you got people like Morpheus and things like that, but there are some other characters. And also with that said, like, there are gay characters sprinkled throughout these first 8 episodes. And like, interestingly enough, the main villain, the Corinthian, he's actually gay. But the thing about this show that I appreciate is that it isn't the only gay representation that you see is the villain characters. No, you have a villain that's gay, but then you also have non-villains that are queer as well. And that's the thing where it's like when black people complain about characters being thugs or whatever, it's like, we don't have a problem with there being actors that are playing in thugs, but at the same time, it's like, what other black type of characters do you see? Like, for the longest time, all we were allowed to play were thugs, criminals, prostitutes, etc. However, speaking of a queer representational character, with this, at least with the comic originally taking place in the DC universe, being that this show was on Netflix, I believe they couldn't get the rights to like the DC characters and things like that. So one of a major, not a major character, but a pretty significant character that appears in the comic is John Constantine, who's known to be bisexual. Well, in this show, they couldn't get the rights to John Constantine, so they cast as somebody else, Joanna Constantine, who was an originally created character for the Sandman series in Neil Gaiman's book. She was the great ancestor of Constantine, so they just basically gender swapped the character of Constantine. And part of me, even though I get they didn't have the rights, the only reason I didn't like that is only because how many times do you see prominent bisexual men specifically in movies, television shows, video games, books, etc., etc.? Almost never. So, but yeah, on the flip side, we're constantly seeing like bisexual women represented in like television. And that's not to say you shouldn't see more, but I'm like, you hardly ever see bisexual men. So I'm like, if, okay, you couldn't get John Constantine, make him somebody else. But maybe that's too complicated with the rights and everything like that. But also, speaking of another character that I didn't really care for, and I know how this is going to sound because I'm like, it happens to be the two women characters, but I'm like, I also didn't like Gwendolyn Christie as Lucifer. Not because they changed Lucifer to a woman. I'm specifically talking about Gwendolyn Christie's performance. Like, nothing about her performance other than the fact that Gwendolyn Christie is a very tall woman, so she does look imposing standing next to Morpheus, but nothing about, and it's not to say her acting was bad, but nothing about her performance specifically made me go, okay, I see why they cast her. And then also, like, when you think about the character of Lucifer, like, Lucifer is super charming. Lucifer is God's most beautiful angel, the one that deceived Adam and Eve. But yet, nothing about her performance gave me charming or, like, enduring or luring, hypnotic, captivating. It was just, like, I don't know, her performance just seemed pretty generic. But her acting was still good, but like, yeah, I'm just like, all right, whatever. And I think my final, and these are all minor criticisms of the show, is like, I do kind of wish there were a little bit more episodes where we got to see like what Morpheus was like before he got captured in the first episode for that century, like I read in the synopsis, because the characters kept mentioning a lot how Morpheus was not a bad guy, but he didn't really care about the world and everything that's going on. He didn't show empathy. He was disconnected from humanity, and I wish we kind of seen a little bit more of that, and also his connection with his siblings, the other Endless, as we see the see more of the transition of Morpheus becoming a better character. So I kind of wish there was a little bit more of that. But other than that, other than those minor criticisms, I really thoroughly enjoyed this show. And I enjoyed it so much that it actually makes me want to go back and read the graphic novel and listen to the audiobook. Maybe I'll do both at the same time. Because like I said, like I mentioned, that audiobook was incredible. Like, James McAvoy, I loved him as Morpheus. At least the voice of Morpheus. Like, if I had to pick, I mean, I don't even know, because while I did like James, I really did like Tom Sturridge as Morpheus. But either way, I'm going to say for me, Sandman's a blockbuster. I may go live to do a spoiler review. So I don't know. I'll think about it. I'll let you guys know. So with that said, did you guys watch Sandman? Did you like Sandman? Did you hate Sandman? Did you think it was okay? Let me know all your thoughts in the comment section below. Also, if you can, once again, hit that like button. It'll help with the YouTube algorithm, and also hit that bell notification button so you're alerted every single time I post a new video. If I decide to go live for the Sandman, if this is one of your first time checking out one of my videos, please check out the other videos on my channel. And if you like what you see, please subscribe for more and hit that bell notification button so you're alerted every single time I post a new video. And tell your friends, families, and neighbors about my channel to help me continue to grow. And as always, I will catch you guys next time.